Katie, Leo, welcome back to the Symphony podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing splendidly. How about you guys?
Stoked. I'm it's 5:30. We started recording this a little late and just been thinking about all day and all weekend, getting prepped for our conversation today. And to give a little bit of context before I ask you to introduce yourself, Matthew, you're here as well. You started a new newsletter series recently, and we've been following you. You were one of our first OG guests on the Symphony podcast, and we've been following your journey for the last, I think, almost 2 years. That was a year and a half ago.
Yes.
And this whole new venture of generally what we want to get a catch up. We want to get a life update with Katie, Leo, and then also to talk a little bit about the first few letters in your newsletter. So floor is yours, and give us a little intro, a little context on your background and some of the big life changes you've had lately. And then we'll get into the meat of what you've been working on.
Yeah. Awesome. So first off, two of my number one fans, I feel, always responding to my Instagrams or my emails. Honestly, this all started when I got let go, just like I feel like everyone and their mom got let go from their job during COVID. And I kind of was hurled into this state of chaos. Like I got my bachelor's in psychology and business, and that kind of launched me into the advertising space where I worked for like 5 to 6 years. And while I obviously will forever appreciate, love marketing, advertising, I think everyone obviously, especially these days, needs to have some sort of marketing or advertising knack or I guess ability to do some sort of marketing in today's day and age. I really have come to find that nutrition and like the fitness space is really where I am kind of meant to be. That's like my calling. So I decided January, or actually August is technically when I started taking the prerequisites, but really January. So what has that been? Roughly 18 days. I'm still gung-ho, honeymoon phase. I am getting my master's in nutrition science. And so that really will allow me to become a registered dietitian. And I'm a strong believer that a balanced diet is truly the most underrated key in preventative medicine. And in my humblest of opinions, I feel that registered dietitians, like health coaches alike, are really those catalysts in ensuring that appropriate information is available and digestible to the masses. So, and I genuinely feel that nutrition is this really underrated, like complex, interdisciplinary field. It kind of fuses everything that every single person touches, like psychology, literally psychology of like how people choose what they eat, or even in social situations. Like obviously we all know food and fitness has really become almost like a bonding activity in itself, but food has always been a really social thing in just human existence. I feel like nutrition also, in addition to psychology, fuses like economics, politics for sure, biology, chemistry, environmental science, like the agriculture portion, which is really something that I know you both are familiar with, especially Matt, but that's really something that I've been trying to get into, is kind of that fusion of nutrition and agriculture. I'm very intrigued by that. So really, it was a long-winded way of me introducing myself, but I truly started this newsletter because I've been working alongside kids and all of my friends and family who have been tapping me for like, oh, is dark chocolate better for you than milk chocolate? Like simple questions like that I'm like, I genuinely don't know, but like I sure as hell am curious to find out. And like I kind of want to be that person that can at least help guide and answer some of those questions. And especially when I've been volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club, teaching a lot of different nutrition classes that I was kind of explaining a little bit prior to this, I've realized that a lot of like journals and peer-reviewed articles that come out with nutrition science and all that jazz, it's very the jargon in it. While I obviously appreciate all of the extremely intelligent individuals that did all these studies, spent endless amounts of hours putting their hours into these studies, it's not really put into layman's terms. And so I really want to make these things that I'm learning in my classes digestible to the masses, kind of like what I said. So basically, I started this nutrition newsletter thinking it would just be like a cheeky, like, A is for, again, ATP we'll dive into, but I've honestly really gone like full throttle, and I'm not going to lie to you. I have done probably like 20 of them just in my leisure time. Like on the weekends, I love writing about all of them. I love researching them. I love triple checking all of my fact sources. And it's obviously I've only done 3 to this day. I think it's January 18th today. So C just came out today. Don't know if you guys saw, but it's calcium. Very exciting. So I guess, again, that's a long-winded way of me saying where I'm at and kind of how this all started, this newsletter.
That was a world of knowledge you just dumped on us. That was a great intro.
Oh man.
And don't worry about the long-windedness. That's what we're here for. We want to hear it all. And for those listening too, I do have to mention what the class was that you were teaching before we got on, because I was touched by that. You were teaching a geography nutrition class at the Boys and Girls Club, and teaching kids about different places around the world and helping them cook meals that are from that place in the world. Correct? Am I getting that right?
Correct. Yes.
Amazing.
And great memory.
It was like 5 minutes ago.
We know. I know. Yeah. You obviously took notes and then regurgitated. The main piece and takeaway, again, that I forgot to mention, which is an amazing segue into my last thought. A part of the reason I am teaching those classes is to really, because obviously it's at the Boys and Girls Club. It's a very specific, again, nutrition fuses economics, politics. I want to really make eating healthy and like access to healthy foods affordable, especially for those kids that do go to the after school Boys and Girls program. So my goal with those is not only expose them to all these different types of countries, which is super cool, and encourage like traveling, trying new things, all like that whole realm, but also that eating healthy can be easy and affordable. Obviously, these kids are not the primary decision makers at the grocery store, but I know that information will ideally be passed on to those decision makers, whether it's like a parent or caretaker, whomever that might be. So,
totally.
yes.
And I think that's super important too, because especially even when you start to learn about how many food deserts there are, where there's actually not even access to healthy food, because like you're talking about, it seems like nutrition and the food we put in our body is such an obvious pillar of life, basically. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the first ever scientist, Hippocrates, said, "Let food be thy medicine." And we've gotten so far away from that concept to the point where it's almost like you have to intentionally seek it out to figure out how to be healthy. And then also, like what you said, even when you do take the time to seek it out, a lot of the jargon that's used is like really scientific and kind of hard to digest. So I think it's really important what you're doing, and I'm grateful to you and excited for the rest of these A through Z newsletters, because I think you're doing a great job of making it like explaining it in layman's terms. Because every newsletter that I get from you, every article that I see you publish, it's like it's really easy to follow, and it's complex stuff too. It's not straightforward. It's like system oriented nutrition cycles and processes, but you're able to regurgitate it in a way that's welcoming and inviting for everyone. And the fact that you're working with kids too is just phenomenal. I think that's one of the better things that we can do with that type of knowledge, is to give it to the younger generation, because they're going to be the ones who can really incorporate it at a young age and then just add it into their lifestyle in ways that are going to make them happier, healthier, more capable human beings. So we at the Symphony applaud your work big time. And unless you want to, did you have one more thought, or do you want to dive into the first couple letters of the newsletter?
No, I think you nailed it. I really think you do. I mean, obviously, I know this is basically an Andrew Huberman fanboy episode.
Oh yeah,
and like Shawn Stevenson,
just like all the other ones,
right?
Yeah.
If Shawn Stevenson or Huberman are listening, we love you. And I really get inspiration. I truly get inspiration from people like that whose goal in life is to, I know at the beginning of each of his episodes, he said, my goal with this podcast is to make extremely complex terms, and especially I know his focus is more like biology science, but make it available and free to the masses. So they are really a true source of inspo. But yes, let's dive into that first letter.
Hit it.
Let's do it. Yeah. And we're going to have that podcast that you recommended to both of us. We both did our homework and listened to it. I'm not sure that we're going to do a full episode just reviewing that awesome Shawn Stevenson and Dr. Andrew Huberman did a 2-part series. It's on the Model Health Show. We'll have that link down there. But if you want to just like get literally the best information dumped into your brain, that would be what you would want to tune into. So yeah, let's kick it off to the letter A.
Okay. Also, Kyle, if you could implement a drum roll sound effect and the playback, that would be
Here it goes. And
so A is for ATP, which some of us might be familiar with ATP and some of the other words that I'm going to mention as we dive into this, such as mitochondria. But ATP just stands for adenosine triphosphate. And you don't really need to know that. But essentially, I like to call it what Shawn Stevenson also calls it as the universal currency of the body. So really, ATP is the energy that we need to do every single thing we love, whether you're a student raising your hand in class, whether you're walking up a flight of stairs, whether you're like Matt doing your beach exercises with his band and then jumping in the water with a cold plunge, or whatever the situation, your body always needs energy, even when it's at rest, even when you're sleeping. It takes energy to blink your eyeballs. So truly ATP is absolutely essential to kind of grasp. So one thing I do want to highlight, because I know we can all relate to this, is ATP obviously wears a ton of hats. I really want to highlight 2 of the hats, if you guys don't mind. First hat is that ATP is absolutely essential in driving nerve impulses. Again, I want to digest or kind of break down nerve impulses. Really, all that means is your extremities, your limbs, all of the organs in your body sending messages and receiving messages from your brain. So something called the vagus nerve is basically like a superhighway from all of your organs and basically your entire body all the way up to your brain. So all of your organs are just constantly sending messages out and up via that superhighway called the vagus nerve, not spelled the same way as Las Vegas, but it is honestly the superhighway sending message up to the brain. The brain then sends basically motor functions back down to your limbs to kind of tell them what to do when they're in this certain situation. So one example I always like to use that I, again, know we can all relate to is if you touch a hot stove, the nerve impulse basically gets sent up, the heat from the stove, right when it touches your fingertips, that immediately gets rapidly sent up via your fingertips, then through the forearm, through the bicep, via the vagus nerve, all the way up to your brain. Your brain then, again, is triggered to send those motor, indicators back down to your body to remove your hand immediately from the heat. Because obviously we're not feeling that. We don't want that. Like, it hurts. So that is basically led by ATP. ATP is driving those nerve impulses that's shooting sensations up to your brain and then your brain back down to your limbs to basically step away or step toward, depending what it is. And the second hat, or I don't know, did you guys want to, can you relate to the hot stove?
Last night,
what's another example?
Well, let me just say last night I made brownies in a cast iron pan because I didn't have like a brownie glass thing. Put it in the fridge to try and make the brownies cool off faster. Came back like 3 minutes later and I was like, oh, I'm just going to grab the handle of the cast iron pan and like almost burn my hand. But yeah, so 27 years old, still haven't learned how metal works. Anyways.
There it is. It didn't cool in the fridge.
3 minutes is a long time, though. You would think, that's logical to think that.
Right.
I thought maybe
I
didn't even think about it actually.
I will say I love.
That.
You're so confident that your brownies tasted so incredible. You needed them immediately in your mouth.
It was 11:30 p.m. and I wanted to go to bed, but it was. We don't need to get too far into it, guys.
We got to sample your work. I get it. Okay.
All right.
Are we ready for hat number 2 that I just really quickly want to call out?
Hat number 2. Rip it up.
Okay. Hat numero 2. So I know that immunity is especially over the past 2 years, it's gained a lot of cred. We don't even need to mention the COVID word, but everyone is obsessed with immunity these days. So ATP is also absolutely essential in fueling your immune system. Your immune system is in charge of everything that fights off bad guys that come into your body. You can just easily think of it that way. Whether that is blood clotting, so if you slice open your skin, your immune system is in charge of sending all of those white blood cells to basically create this web to not allow any more of those outside toxins into your body. So that's a good example of something that not only ATP is in charge of, but your immune system is really like at all ends of your body, whether it's inside or something like even your saliva contains immune boosting cells that really fight off and try to kill anything that enters your mouth via saliva. Even your eyelashes are technically considered a part of your immune system, which I learned, which is awesome. And so essentially ATP is that fuel that provides your immune system with the energy to fight off these bad guys. So real quick, I just want to highlight macrophages, which is basically just one type of white blood cell. And of course, with help from its whole white blood cell squad, it really does fight off anything that enters your body. So any particles floating in your blood or fluids, again, ATP is going to be that fuel that the macrophages basically swallow up in order to do their job and just constantly be fighting off anything that gets in, whether it's through your blood, again, maybe even your eyeballs, your mouth, a cut on your arm. And that's one of my favorite highlights because I feel like everyone's really obsessed with immunity these days. So I always like to call that out. And your eyelashes are part of your immune system. Like, what?
That's crazy.
That is super interesting. Also, I'm glad you looked at it from that angle too, because that paints a good picture of kind of what ATP can do. I feel like in my mind, it's almost like ATP is just responsible for transporting energy and information throughout your body so that it knows what to do in whatever circumstance it finds itself in. That's at least how I think about it in my mind. I went down my own wormhole a long time ago too, when we were deciding what we wanted to use in our Shroomy and Root Strength products. And when we learned about the connection between cordyceps and ATP, how when you ingest cordyceps, your body can actually produce more ATP molecules, which can naturally boost your energy, especially if you're just using that for the ATP molecules to basically bring energy to your lungs and to your muscles while you're working out, to better prep you for that exercise. And it allows you to utilize oxygen better. You can move it more efficiently throughout your body. And so we just pumped our pre-workout product full of ATP for that reason. And now it's something that I use every single day. And I have the biggest difference that I notice is in my breathing. Like, I feel like I'm able to intake oxygen at a much higher rate and kind of distribute it effectively throughout my body. And so I have to imagine that ATP is playing some sort of role in that. But I was really stoked when I saw that was the first letter of the alphabet, because or of the nutrition alphabet, because that plays a very prominent role in our products, which, speaking of, we have you a discount code now for your next newsletter to plug.
Nice plug there.
Yeah. Shameless marketing.
I'm so excited. I honestly just started using Root Strength, and unlike again, I'm being super honest. I am not being financially supported by Root Strength. Honestly, I loved it because I've taken pre-workout before. And the reason I'm always anti pre-workout is because I feel like a schizo, like when I'm on it and before I go to work out. And it just sometimes feels like my heart is beating out of its chest because I feel like I already run at like 100 million miles an hour. And I'm like, that's the last thing I truly need floating in my blood. But I really like it. So I'm very excited to be pushing it out in my next newsletter.
Hell yeah. I love the review. That's good to hear because that's kind of how we wanted it to be that way. Just long, smooth, sustained, lasting energy. So happy to hear it. But okay, any final thoughts on ATP before we jump to the next one?
I would just say it's interesting that when we think about nutrition and energy, we think about calories, right? Is typically how people, it's like calories in, calories out is a conversation that's, thrown around quite a bit in nutrition. So I guess I commend you, Katie, for bringing up a different perspective and also love the immunity angle. And the way that you described ATP as this like basically universal thing that can be used in so many different ways. Hadn't thought about any of that. So awesome. All of it. And I don't know how we're going to make through 3 letters in under 30 minutes.
I know. Oh, shoot.
It's a guest episode. So we have plenty of time.
Yeah. We're just having fun here. And of course, sign up for that newsletter. It's nice. You can get in for D through Z at this point. The longer you wait, the more letters you miss.
Right. Also, another note, I am open to suggestions for letters for those that I haven't done. I should honestly send out a list. Okay, so you guys, B, another drum roll, Kyle. B is for blood-brain barrier. Truly, this is one of my absolute favorite topics because I tried to make it as digestible in my newsletter from last week as possible using very subpar celebrity analogies. So I would like to just explain what the BBB is. Essentially, obviously, we all know that veins and arteries, which are those blue lines that you see running through your hands or your arms or wherever, even some of us have veins popping out of our foreheads. Can you delete that part? So veins and arteries are the blue lines running under your skin, under those thin pieces of your skin, like whether it's on your feet or your hands. They are delivering blood to and from your organs, like the stomach, the heart, etc. This is all being done subconsciously, of course, via
the blood-brain barrier. Oh.
Yeah, via the blood-brain barrier. No, but this is the perfect segue. Oh, yeah. Via the vagus nerve, thanks to ATP.
We're failing.
So, yeah. I'll give you like a C,
I'm
though.
with you. I'm here.
Okay. So there's a specific group of these blood vessels that surround and monitor the VIP part of your body, which I'm going to refer to as the brain, also the spinal cord. So we like to refer to this specific group of blood vessels that are very dense surrounding your brain called the blood-brain barrier. I like to kind of think of them, again, this is my very subpar actor analogy. I like to think of them as like John Cena, like standing, like there's a bunch of him like lined up, like standing outside of the super elite club that is your brain. And he's just like flexing, like he plays the same role in every single goddamn movie he's in. But basically he's just like standing outside of your brain, determining who gets to pass through the ropes. And so like when John Cena is doing his job absolutely impeccably, just like flexing muscles, doing his thing, telling those people that can come in, telling the good people that they can come in, telling the bad people that they need to stay outside. They've had one too many, if you know what I mean. Only the good molecules are allowed in. So the bad toxins and pathogens are immediately denied entry because your brain is, again, the VIP section, while it technically only is about 2% of your body size, it actually consumes 20% of the energy that your body creates from macronutrients and cellular respiration. Really, macronutrients is just a fancy word for the food that you eat. So like the proteins, the carbs, the fats, those are the 3 main categories. So literally your brain consumes 20% of that energy. So it's definitely an energy hog. So it's very important that we are extremely particular with what gets to come in and what does not get to come in. something I really like to highlight that I think is essential is that the brain is made up of 60% fat. And I feel like fat gets a very bad rap, whether it's like the low fat diet. I know keto is a very prominent thing where that is like essentially an all fat diet. But I really want to highlight that fats are absolutely essential, not only because that is what 60% of your brain is made up of, but also each cell wall, your body has 15 trillion cells in it. Each cell wall is made up of phospholipids, where the term phospholipid, like lipid at the end, just literally translates to fat. So every single cell that is in your body is made up of fat that surrounds it. So it's super important that we're getting really awesome sources of dietary fat. So anything from like egg yolks to fish, like salmon, nuts, even like sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds. You can even get them from like turmeric or chicken, mushrooms. Avocado is a really amazing, super versatile source of fat. I know, especially for our more plant-based friends. So that's kind of me talking a lot, but I just want to stop and note that the blood-brain barrier is absolutely essential, and I'm obsessed with it. It's like genius. Like it's basically like a barricade that protects this VIP section so that we don't have these like neurodegenerative diseases like strokes, MS, brain traumas, all of that stuff. We can really help our body. I mean, sometimes it is inevitable a little bit due to genetics, but I really like to think that we can kind of control that component of it due to things like lifestyle and diet.
The only thing I'm frustrated by is that you didn't mention butter in that list of good fat sources.
That's true.
I did love it. I did love the list. And the John Cena analogy, just such a great visual.
Oh, yeah, that is a good one. Also, I think I was just going to say, this is an interesting one too, because it's almost like it's protecting your brain and it's enabling your brain to work at the level that it's supposed to. And so in my mind, that translates to, okay, I want to make sure that I'm protecting this at all costs. Like I want to make sure that I'm doing the things in my lifestyle that are going to translate to my blood-brain barrier being really strong so that my brain can function at its highest capacity, which I think is a really good segue to talk about the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is one that's actually unreleased so far. We're going to skip ahead and go to E to talk about another drum roll. But this is a big deal. This feels very central to what we stand for as a platform. I feel like everything that we talk about in some way relates back to this term.
Yes. So E, just getting my notes. I honestly am so obsessed with, again, I'm still in the honeymoon phase of my program. So like perhaps this will fade, but I highly doubt it. So E stands for endocrine system. Endocrine system is really just a series of glands that release hormones. So we often think of hormones, at least I always do every time I heard hormones. I always thought of the classic hormones like testosterone, estrogen, all of those types of things like in grade school when everyone's like, oh my gosh, he's so hormonal or like she's so hormonal. I want, if you, even you two or any listener out there, if you guys walk away with one thing from this episode, I want it to be that hormones are absolutely the MVPs of your entire existence. When I say they are in charge of everything, they're basically like the UPS system or like FedEx that's delivering literally everything to every single part of your body. So obviously,
I'm sorry. I love this.
It's
the analogies
amazing.
are just awesome.
Oh my gosh, perfect.
Got me so good.
I thought someone was like behind me doing something funny.
Literally just made me laugh so hard. I don't know. That's so funny.
Incredible.
Sorry
That's
to interrupt.
my goal. So no, please, Kyle, the endocrine system, again, think of it as the UPS system. Again, FedEx, whichever you prefer. I know there's been a lot of turmoil with the USPS, whatever. We won't get political. However, hormones are the MVPs of your body. Essentially, they are in charge of everything. When I say everything, I mean everything. They basically do everything from monitor your appetite control to your sleep schedule, your reproductive cycle, how much fat your body chooses to store from the nutrients that you're putting in your mouth. It even controls like salt and water balance. So basically, that means everything from how dehydrated you are to if you're like having diarrhea, like literally controls the salt and water components of your body. It regulates energy, depletion, stress. I could go on. I do want to highlight 4, if you guys don't mind, specifically.
Please.
Actually, I'll highlight 3. Are we still in a time crunch?
I'm going to be dying for that 4th one, but no, don't worry about the time. Just go.
Okay, so I do want to highlight 4 that you mostly have probably heard about. Real quick, hormones are produced in, I like to highlight 3 specific areas. So the thyroid gland, which just sits at the front part of your lower neck, so kind of like just above your collarbone. They're also produced in the adrenal glands, which are rested on top of each kidney, as well as the ovaries and the testes, which we obviously know where all those are at. Okay, so 4 that I want to highlight. Insulin is the first one. We often think of insulin as tied to like diabetes, type 1 or type 2. That is extremely accurate because insulin essentially controls the level of glucose in your blood right after you consume a meal. So insulin is a hormone that I always love to talk about because honestly, everyone's heard of it in some capacity or another. And if you haven't, you've definitely heard of diabetes. So by glucose in the blood, I just mean sugar in the blood. So again, ATP is kind of made from those sugars, those carbs, those macronutrients that we're digesting. So it's really all of the glucose particles that are floating in your blood right after you consume a meal. Glucose is the hormone that determines what gets stored for later use and energy, basically reuptake through the blood. And then what it kind of just chooses to push out via peeing or number 2. So I really like to highlight insulin because it's really in charge of determining what gets stored as fat and what it selects as energy. So you really do want to ensure that you're fueling your body with the most optimal forms. And I know you two know this, but really fueling your body with the most optimal forms of anything that provides glucose. So those macronutrient categories like the carbs, the fats, and the proteins, because insulin is going to determine what it takes and stores. And if it is a like more saturated fat, obviously love butter just as much as the next guy. But if you're just eating butter every single meal, every single day, it's really going to affect the type of energy that your insulin is then able to uptake. That was basically a long-winded little stage of insulin that I like to give it. It's very important. Thyroid hormones. So your thyroid hormones are, obviously they didn't get too creative with this one, which I was kind of bummed by. Thyroid hormone, like let's put a little more effort into it. Rate, it's basically the rate that your cells burn and create energy from the glucose that insulin is storing. So your thyroid hormones are super essential in basically creating ATP, which we've obviously hit on a few different times, creating ATP from the glucose, the sugar, the fats, the proteins that you're eating. Thyroid hormone is also very important in calcium deposits throughout your body. So that is really the density of your bones. It is able to read how strong your bones are due to the levels of calcium that are housed throughout different areas of your body, and then is able to, again, via that vagus nerve, signal up to the brain that your brain should seek more sources of calcium. So I won't get too detailed into that one, but thyroid hormone is very, very key. Adrenaline. We've obviously all heard of adrenaline. It is essentially important in increasing blood pressure and heart rate when the body is under stress. Now, I know we talked a bit about this actually before we recorded, but there are obviously bad types of stress. However, what I feel like is often underscored are the good types of stress, which adrenaline is also in charge of. So like any type of excitement, or when you need to get several different tasks done, like you want your adrenaline flowing at steady states. Obviously, like we've all heard of fight or flight. That is also essential. So adrenaline's really increasing blood pressure and heart rate when necessary. One of my favorites, which I know was frequently highlighted in that Shawn Stevenson and Dr. Andrew Huberman podcast, was melatonin. So I absolutely love melatonin, and I won't go into it too much because, hint, hint, it might be coming in a latter newsletter, but it really is in charge of regulating your circadian rhythms and the patterns at which you sleep. So melatonin is really in charge of being that catalyst in the cascade of events that happen as your body's starting to, quote, wind down for the day. So I really like to highlight those four because we probably have heard of at least two of them. So I kind of want to make it a bit more like familiar or relatable to some of the listeners.
100%. I mean, yeah, you like the importance of the endocrine system is pretty unbelievable, especially if you just a quick Google search. The first thing that shows up is it says the endocrine system, made up of all the body's different hormones, regulates all biological processes in the body from conception through adulthood and into old age. So for your entire life, including the development of the brain and nervous system, the growth and function of the reproductive system, as well as the metabolism and blood sugar. Like that is essentially every single pillar of being a healthy, alive human being that's controlled by one system in your body. And so it's like all signs point to protect this system at all costs, nourish this system at all costs. And so, and that's the comparison that I love that Shawn Stevenson and Andrew Huberman kind of, they bring it to that next level of like, okay, so how do we take care of this system? Like what are some of the activities that we can do? And like you kind of talked about, stress is actually a good thing for our body in a lot of ways. Granted that it's not long-term stress that's been weighing on us for a very long time, but if it's self-induced stress, such as exercise or cold plunging or just moving through space, like running, I mean, that's exercising still, but like it's releasing adrenaline in the brain, which apparently that release of adrenaline actually releases cells in the body that actively fight infection, whether it be bacterial, viral, like whatever it might be. So the connections that are happening between your physical body and your brain and how that translates to health is, in my mind, the most fascinating and interesting thing that exists. And so it makes me so stoked that you're going so deep into it with your studies and just in your personal life and everything that you're getting involved with, because I feel like I can get myself to a certain point, but I love having you on the show and being able to learn at an even deeper level the importance of all this stuff and how it actually connects to our day-to-day life. And so, yeah, cannot promote the newsletter enough and keep it up because it's awesome. It's all really good stuff.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. One of the things that I thought in the podcast was super tactical and useful is the two deep inhales followed by a long exhale. So 2 nose inhales, like, and then you repeat that 2, 3, 20 times. And that's kind of like a toggle for your stress. Like you can just tame that cortisol. And if you do feel like, oh, I'm, about to do like some public speaking, or I'm about to, Huberman said it's a very good covert way of like, we can't just lay down on the ground and start doing Wim Hof breathing sometimes. So 2 quick inhales and an exhale. I'm going to try that out. See how it goes.
Mm-hmm. I loved that. Honestly, just listening to those two, like, I like felt calm. I remember I was driving and I felt like I was just like floating on the highway. It was great. I love that. I absolutely love the episode. So yeah, we'll definitely link it. But I'm so glad that you guys are gravitating to the words. I mean, obviously you both, due to the fact that you run the show over at Symphony, you have that kind of innate interest in this type of stuff. You are definitely my audience with this newsletter and everything I'm putting out on social media. I also do hope to be able to just lasso those other people in as well that perhaps aren't really intrigued, but just get the information out there that obviously I can even take some of my own pieces of advice, like from all of these newsletters, like eat more X, Y, and Z, like take rest days, like don't be so stressed all the time. Obviously that's so much easier said than done.
Yeah.
Like it's very hard to like in the moment have those out of body experiences and be like, hold on, relax, do the.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the more you are self-aware and like hyper aware of your situational or like environmental surroundings, the more we'll be able to implement all of the things that we're talking about.
Totally. Yeah.
So true.
And a lot of these things are really simple too, right? And we talked about this on an episode pretty recently about just kind of like how understanding your biology can really help you live a happier, healthier life. And so I think even just grasping the concept that your brain is this organism that actually has the ability to change itself for the better, for a better version of you. And all you have to do is just like basically give it the essential things that it needs and keep crap out of your body for the most part.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can go in as far as you want into it and make it either difficult or easy, but even just small steps in the direction of kind of understanding this concept, I think is very, very, very valuable no matter what age you are, because it's never too late to start too, which is encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the
Well
other
said.
thing they had in the podcast that I thought was just the way they ended the podcast was so kind of fitting and kind of like where we've ended is like, basically like it doesn't always have to be a grind. Like getting these habits started is harder than once you know it feels good to eat a certain way or move or sleep a certain way. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this. It was a chore for me last year. Now I've established it as a habit. It's no longer a chore. It's actually a joy. So that's one of the beauties about like learning about all this stuff. And I think, Katie, you're doing a great job of making the nerdy science, like quote unquote boring stuff, super digestible and also just hilarious. Like I don't think I've ever laughed so hard on the Symphony podcast. I don't know why you got me going on
Wow.
the analogies were awesome. So kudos to you. And this is not going to be the last that we hear of you on this podcast for sure. So I guess to end, what are you working on going forward, and not in terms of school or your business or anything, but like what are you personally working on as 2022 kicks off? Where are you allocating your time and energy to grow?
It's a great question. I actually could do one of my episodes or one of my newsletters on like goal setting. I know you guys have a ton of those. So because I've listened to a few of them, are really just like focusing on like self-improvement. I did a bunch of goal setting with 6 different categories that I won't really get into now, but one of them, or I'll highlight 2 of them. One was very simple things that I really want to focus on implementing in my like tactical day-to-day living. One of my like wellness ones is no phone after 8 p.m. And that's really been an awesome thing for me. I know everyone and their mom can relate that you catch yourself on Instagram or TikTok, although I don't have a TikTok that I post on, so I can't relate to that piece, but I'm sure it's very similar, if not worse. Just catch yourself scrolling all the time. And then especially even on Pinterest, if you go on places like Pinterest, it's basically the epitome of here's how to make 6,000 calorie brownies. And then here's like a 45-minute workout to like lose 80 pounds in 1 hour. And it's like, wait, you honestly can't ever win with all of this endless scrolling. So I truly feel like if I, again, going back to the release of melatonin and regulating my circadian rhythms, I've realized that if I put my phone away at 8 p.m. and have that like 2-hour phone free time to just either talk with my boyfriend or watch a show, read a book, whatever the case, I realized that I'm a lot more calm and get better sleep. So that's really something I am intentionally focusing on. And I would say the second is to be very open to any new experiences that come my way. I've been having this mantra that I say every single morning, and it's, I am aligned with greatness and I welcome new opportunities in my life and am excited to attract new experiences. While it kind of sounds like hodgepodgey, it's like the more I'm saying it to myself, like looking at myself in the mirror, saying it, I've realized that I've had random opportunities come across my desk, like the UCLA one, for example, or I'm working at, I know Matt's very familiar with it, the Ecology Center, and also Tanaka Farms, which has been this focus that, or this place specifically that I've really always wanted to work, and they wanted to bring a nutritionist on staff. So that's really something that I'm focusing on, I guess, to bring it macro lens again. Just welcoming new things, whether it's like people, emotions, experiences, just kind of open to saying yes, I guess.
I love
I
that.
love it. Yeah. There's a lot to that, those mantras or those affirmations, because you're just creating that energy. So you're creating that energy. So you're welcome. By doing that, you're welcoming that energy into your life. And so, it's definitely connected, but I think that's awesome. Those are some
Can
really
I ask
good
you guys
points
to give me one of each thing you're working on?
Sure. I can go first, I guess. Yeah, kind of on the spot, Katie. A little messed up, but for me, I think, and actually, this fits into the podcast as well. But, and this is kind of a hard one to explain. Kyle and I have had some conversations about it, but just like having meaningful and important conversations and like speaking my own truth in a way that isn't holding anything back, but also isn't like threatening isn't the right word, but like
off-putting, or
kind of like imposing or off-putting whoever I'm communicating with. Like just that, I feel like that's a skill that I would really like to have, because I feel like I find myself in conversation a lot where I will even be hearing something and really kind of fundamentally disagreeing with it potentially. And like, instead of being able to articulate in a respectful manner why I disagree and like my own thoughts from my own experiences on the situation, like I just kind of choose to just either just nod and like be like, yeah, of course, or like whatever, and just not really like contest it. And I'm not saying that it's important to contest everything that anybody says whenever you're just having a conversation. Like sometimes that is the best call. But I also think just on this podcast, like we want to be a place where people can get like raw, genuine information from people who aren't afraid to speak some genuine truth, kind of, well, truth from experience at least. So not capital T truth, but lowercase t, lowercase t truth. But just being able to do that in a respectful way. And I think, I don't know, that's something that I would kind of like to increase my skills at, I suppose.
That's really good. Like an eloquent challenge or something.
Yeah.
I like it.
And just showing up for myself in business in that way as well. Cause like we find ourselves in situations a lot where, we are very young in terms of the business world. And so we find ourselves kind of maybe not always speaking up when we know something is right, or we know that we want to do things a certain way, but people are telling us is like, oh, well, that's not the way things have always been done. That's like, you guys are young, you just don't understand. And there's always a part of us that's like, well, maybe it's not supposed to be done that way. Like maybe we actually know what we're talking about. And this is, yeah. How do you respectfully tell people to fuck off?
Yeah. What is your ratio of gone well to not gone well using that phrase?
Well,
how do you fuck off?
Yeah, I haven't quite introduced that phrase, but that's why I'm working on this as a goal, is to find more eloquent ways to encourage discussion, encourage debate, whatever it's going to be, but just like basically invite the conversation to go to a place where both people are going to come away with, I don't know, like a new perspective in a way that didn't make them feel threatened or diminished in any sense.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I would just add for myself, I'm working on creating more time and space for introspection and introspection.
Well said.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Anyways, I have a tendency, and many men have a tendency, to bottle things up, ignore issues, put things to the side, not go there, especially when it is a touchy subject, let's just say. So yeah, just trying to not always be in this like go, go, go mentality and actually slow down, enjoy the ride. 27 years old, going to turn 28 this year, and just trying to enjoy this beautiful journey that we have. So thanks for asking, Katie. And thank you for coming on the show. This was a blast. I learned a lot. I think I got to re-listen to this whole thing. I took some great notes here, about 4 bullet points, but once I go back and listen to this whole thing, I'm super excited to get this out next Monday.
I mean, I've already put the address on the envelope and sending you my notes here directly to your address.
Send me,
so
I think that'll be a cheap 1 stamp. You send that, it'll just take 1 stamp to send that.
Well, thank you guys truly so much. I obviously have a passion for this, but what really fuels me is that other people are able to digest it alongside me and learn alongside me. And I'm really admirable of the passion that you guys both have for not only self-improvement, obviously that you just alluded to, but learning new things. And I am already stoked to be on again. Thank you again.
Amazing. Yeah. So we can find you on Instagram at KTLeo, right?
Yes. The letter K, the letter T, the letter L, the letter E, and the letter O.
Yep. And then also, if people want to use your discount for any of our products, the discount code is KT, the 2 letters, KT Leo, LEO 15. And that'll give you a little 15% discount on Shroomy and Root Strength. So get after it.
All right, guys. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. We're out of here.